Yay, let's do this. Good morning, everyone. I'm Margaret Chung from the University of Houston and the Center for Theoretical Biological Physics at Rice University. On behalf of the organizers, including Margie Dieter, Charlene Dinos, and Kristin Blagliev, I would like to welcome you to the virtual workshop for Growing Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity for the Physics of Living Systems, I call it PoLS, Student Research Network. This workshop is initiated by the PoLS students. I'm excited that everyone can share best practices and actionable items to grow the ecosystems of PoLS or in general physics by fixing leaky pipelines and by including the outlets from the pool of historically underserved or economically disadvantaged students. The format of this workshop will be a series of pre-recorded talks followed by live Q&A with the speaker. The sessions will be moderated by PoLS volunteer students. Please write your questions in the chat box. To honor the convention of PoLS meetings, the moderators will pick questions from students first. Please mute your microphone unless being called to ask questions. At noontime, there are parallel roundtable discussions hosted by PoLS students who volunteer. It is optional and the maximum capacity will be 50 students, 10 participants per table. The host of roundtables will summarize the discussion on a Google Sheet that we share. We will further discuss them at the town hall meeting tomorrow. We will introduce frequent breakout sessions during the long breaks in a program. Please introduce yourself and hang out with the participants, or you can simply take a break. I will turn this microphone to Kristin. Kristin?
Yeah, thank you very much, Margaret. I would like to thank all of you for participating in this extremely important meeting. I want to thank all the students for their initiative to have this meeting. I'm very proud of our community responding very fast to this acute problem that has been around us for many, many, many years. I would like to thank all the speakers and our keynote speaker, of course, for agreeing to speak on this meeting. I just want to say a few words about this meeting from a slightly different perspective. I'm very proud of our community that we actually responded to this problem, start thinking about it about a year ago. We have focused over the years and very successfully built a PoLS community on the scientific basis, but we have ignored one problem, and that is that in our diverse country, science can be only successful if all groups are represented in science. And I became aware, and a number of us started discussing this last summer, that how can we have diversity in our faculty positions, in our graduate students, if 40% of high schools don't even offer physics. There is no way people can go to college and become physicists if they have never heard what physics is. So the question is, how can we help? And we organized one meeting in the summer, and now, thanks to Margaret and Margie, we have been so successful organizing this meeting. And we are on the forefront. We are the first actual meeting that is going to address this question in our physics community. I'm very proud of it. Of course, the American Physical Society has organized meetings and stuff like that. But I think as an organized community in the physics of living systems, and more broadly, I hope we lead the whole physics community. I think we are at the forefront. So I wish you a very, very successful meeting. I hope that we will have actionable items that we can act fast and help build diversity, fairness, and inclusion in our community. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back, everyone. My name is Charlene Dinos. I'm speaking to you from Urbana, Illinois, where the University of Illinois sits. And I'm very excited to announce our first speaker, to introduce our first speaker, who is one of our physics faculty here. We're very proud and thrilled to have him be a part of this program. Professor Phillips got his PhD from the University of Washington in 1982. He was then a Miller Fellow at Berkeley and taught at MIT for 9 years before he came to Illinois in 1993. He's a condensed matter theorist who works on disordered, strongly correlated electron systems and problems on the border with high-energy physics. In March of this year, he was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And I'm very excited to hear what Professor Phillips has to say to us this morning.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk here. I presume everyone can hear me? Okay,
Yes,
good.
everything's fine.
Good, okay. So when Charlene asked me to talk, I think my initial response after a week was no, because I couldn't think of anything new that I could add to my APS talk. Then I was reading the New York Review of Books, which is the only thing I read, and the talk essentially wrote itself. So then I sent her an email and I said, I think I know what I'm going to talk about. And so this talk has allowed me to learn something completely new. I never took a US history course in high school. I'm not from the US, and my parents always emphasized that the US has no history. So everything I learned in the last month. Everything I will be talking about, I learned in the last month. So I apologize to those of you who might know this history much better than I do. So with that proviso, I will begin. So the name of my talk is 1876, The Indelible Reshaping of Physics and Inclusion. I don't have any answers, but I want to put this problem in a broader context. And since I'm a physicist, I wanted to apply my physics method to this, which is we have to get to the bottom of the problem. So the problem is African-American representation in physics. At least that's one of the problems we are dealing with, minority representation in physics. So if this is the problem, let's see if this was always a problem. So that was how I decided to approach this. So I decided to go back and ask the question, what was the year that the first Black physicist obtained a PhD? So this is the audience participation part, and you will, I don't know exactly, just think about the question. This is not the correct medium for you to respond. But here are some options: 1950, 1876, 1776, 1963. So let me just give you a chance to think about this. Actually, Charlene, is it possible for people to unmute themselves and give an answer?
People are putting their answers in the chat.
Oh, I see. Okay, let me look at the chat and see. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to change anything on my screen because it's, okay, so it is good that you guys are putting things in the chat. Let me give you
1963.
1953.
63.
1963.
That's
okay.
my guess, Jose.
Okay, Jose. You know, that is an answer that I thought most people would go with. So let me give you a hint and take 3 of them away. So this is like the Monty Hall show. I'm taking 3 of them away, and the answer is 1876.
Title kind of gave it away.
Well, the title gave it away. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about this. It was 1876.
But I knew it was Edward Boucher, though.
Okay, and here is a picture of the person who was the first African-American to earn a PhD in physics. His name is Edward A. Boucher. He obtained his PhD from Yale. The title of his thesis is on measuring refractive indices. Now, let me put this in a context. How many PhDs were there in 1876?
100.
Okay, so the number of PhDs produced by Yale was 6. So Boucher was one of 6. And the total number of PhDs produced from all American universities in 1876 in physics was 20. So the ratio in 1876 was 1 in 20. Now, that's not the ratio now. So the question that obviously comes up is why? Things started out incredibly well. You know, most of us would take the ratio now 1 in 20. But that's not the case. So as a physicist, I asked the question, why? So I made an attempt to find Boucher's thesis. So I sent a note after several back and forths with my colleagues in the Yale physics department. I was directed to this librarian, and she says, "Thank you for your email concerning the Boucher's thesis. There is no known copy or detailed description of Edward Alexander Boucher's Yale physics thesis on measuring refractive indices." And she gave me a link to an obituary and the thing in Physics Today. Of course, I knew this. So I didn't learn much, but what struck me as strange is that there is no copy of his thesis. You would have thought that the first Black person to earn a PhD at an august place like Yale, there would be some record of his thesis. There is no copy of his thesis. What I did find on the Yale archive is this picture, which shows Boucher right here in the middle, or centrally located in a class reunion. So this is not the focus, the class reunion. It's an interesting picture, and you can make of it what you want. But what I want to ask is, what was special about 1876? And does that somehow inform us as to why the ratio now is so much lower and it did not continue to grow? So why was 1876 special? So here is an artist's rendition of that very nice still picture. 1876 was special. I'm going to make the case for this because of two people. One was Rutherford B Hayes, the eventual presidential candidate, or president rather, resulting from the 1876 election. And along the way, there were a whole cast of characters, one no more important than Benjamin Tillman. And on the Clemson University campus, there's this very nice looking building, and it's called Tillman Hall. The fate of Boucher really lay in these two people's hands. And that's the story I want to tell you. So 1876 was an election year. This is also an election year. And it is becoming clear to people now that the election of 1876 holds a lot of similarities with what is going on now in 2020. And many people are now writing about this. So this was an election year. Many people have written books about this. Here is one entitled Fraud of the Century. The election was between the Republican, and at the time the Republicans were the party of Lincoln, they were the party of Reconstruction. So this was between Rutherford B Hayes and Samuel Tilden, the Democrat from New York State. So let me tell you a few things about Rutherford B Hayes. He was from Ohio. He came from a fairly well educated family. Their family were really centrally located in the abolitionist movement. When he did become president, he banished wine from the White House. He fought in the Civil War for the Union and was wounded twice. And he ran on a platform of Reconstruction, full rights for all enslaved Negro people. Samuel Tilden, and it's significant that Tilden, the Democrat, was not from some southern state, but he was from a northern state. Not just any northern state, New York. Let me tell you a few things about Samuel Tilden. He didn't release his tax returns. He was a white supremacist. He ran on a platform of limiting Chinese immigration. He was against Reconstruction. And of course, anyone who doesn't release his or her, or whatever pronoun you want to use, tax returns, of course, was for tax reform. Now, this should not seem distant to you. Okay. So the difference between these two politicians was so stark that people wrote songs about this. And here are some words from a song of this time. And let me just read to you the refrain, or the first of it. We will not vote for Tilden because we never can believe that for a president, he is a proper man. His party friends have ever been opposed to equal rights, but Hayes will execute the laws for blacks as well as whites. And this is the song, I don't know the tune, that's not the important thing. And it goes on for many stanzas. It has a refrain that Tilden is just a bad man. Now let me tell you the election results. The election was held on November 3rd, 1876. And here is, the colors are still represent what they represent today. No, they don't. Okay, sorry. Blue is Republican, red is Democrat. Yes. Yes, that's right. No, red is, I always get confused about this though. Red is Republican, blue is Democrat. Is that what I said? Yes, that's right. And those are the colors today. Yes, that's right. Okay. Once again, remember, I'm not from the US. Okay, so now the important tally, of course, is the Electoral College. And on November 3rd, the tally was Tilden, 184 electoral votes, Hayes, 165. The number of electoral votes one needed to become president, 185. Tilden was 1 vote short. So let me give you the breakdown of the popular vote. The popular vote, Hayes lost the popular vote. 4 million roughly votes, 48% of the vote. Tilden, the Democrat, the anti-abolitionist, 51% of the vote, roughly 300,000 more votes than Hayes. People went to bed that night thinking that the Democrats had definitely won the election. But the important thing is that both parties declared victory. Now, to give you some context as to how many blacks were in the US at the time, the best number I could come up with is around 5.5 million. Okay. Now, it was soon discovered that there were huge voting irregularities. And this became clear when one considered what were the states that were still undecided. Florida was one of those states. It had 4 electoral votes in play. South Carolina had 7. Louisiana had 8. Oregon had 1 undeclared electoral vote. So there were 19 Southern electors. Now, it's not an accident that these 19 Southern electors that were undecided were from Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana. These were the only Southern states in which federal troops were still present to maintain some semblance of protection for the Black population. And it is those states that ultimately decided who would be president. I want to focus on one of them, South Carolina. And many of you might know what happened in South Carolina. South Carolina had an incredible voter suppression campaign. And this was known as Gary's Plan. A conservative Democrat, and he said that every Democratic must feel honor bound to control the vote of at least one Negro by intimidation, purchase, keeping him away, or as each individual may determine how he may best accomplish it. I'm not going to read all of these, but the organization and the level of detail to which they'd thought about how to suppress and intimidate any Republican voting in the South was beyond anything that you can imagine. The result of this, and this is the only equation I have in this talk, the Blacks that voted was order 0. Now, there is a well-organized method, and the person who was quite central to this was Benjamin Tillman, the person who has a name on a building at Clemson University. Benjamin Tillman was the governor of South Carolina from 1890 to 1895. And his great success as the governor of South Carolina led him to be elected as a US Senator. And he died in office. He would have continued. Now, he is particularly known for his involvement in the Hamburg Massacre. This was a massacre in July, or it was July or August of 1876, and it was part of the suppression of the Black vote. His help in all of this was a group called the Red Shirts, a group whose main role was to make the lives of Blacks incredibly difficult by either lynching them, killing them, intimidating them, all sorts of abuse. It doesn't show in this picture, but their shirts are red. Another role that they had was they offered security at polls. And this picture is taken in 1899. And this is the group of characters that was offering poll security Well, you can imagine how much poll security they offered. These are the words that Tillman said in 1909 while he was still a US senator at a reunion of the Red Shirts. The purpose of our visit to Hamburg was to strike terror, and the next morning, Sunday, when the Negroes who had fled to the swamp returned to the town, some of them never did return but kept on going. The ghastly sight which met their gaze of 7 dead Negroes lying stark and stiff certainly had its effect. It was now after midnight, and the moon high in the heavens looked down peacefully on the deserted town and dead Negroes, whose lives had been offered up as a sacrifice to the fanatical teachings and fiendish hate of those who sought to substitute the rule of the African for that of the Caucasian in South Carolina. This is 1909. He's a US senator, and this is what he said. As a result of this, you can imagine that it's not much of an extrapolation to see in the press these days, people are beginning to see the continuity between various organizations now and the Red Shirts. And here are just a couple of things that you can find online. And this, of course, is Tillman. And here is the building, which still has his name on the Clemson University campus. Their plan was incredibly executed. A voting commission was organized because there were huge voting irregularities. I just want to report on one of them because it's also made its way into the popular press these days. The result I want to show you is what happened at the precinct that was monitored by Tillman himself. It was a precinct in South Carolina in which the population was 2/3 Black. Now, this was in the Reconstruction era. Blacks could vote. So you would think a precinct that's 2/3 Black would have a huge Republican turnout. Let me just give you the Democratic votes counted. There were 211 Democratic votes counted. Now, this is also an audience participation. How many votes do you think were recorded for the Republican candidate?
Everyone is writing 0 in the chat.
0, okay. You are very close because I gave you one equation. It's a shocking number, 2. And it's because of irregularities of such a gross magnitude that something had to be done about this election. And in the popular press, this is something from the Chicago Tribune, September 25, the political farce of 1876, 2 Negroes and 10 whites, undoubtedly referring to this particular precinct. Now, as a result of this, an electoral commission was formed. The electoral commission had 5 senators. The Senate at that time was controlled by the Democrats. By the Democrats. No, sorry, by the Republicans. The House was controlled by the Democrats, and there were 5 Supreme Court justices. So there are 15 people in all, an odd number. And there was 1 independent appointed from the Supreme Court Justice, Davis from Illinois, who when he was appointed on this electoral commission, he immediately was offered a seat position for the Illinois Senate. He left and he was replaced by a Republican. The vote that resulted from this electoral commission was as follows. 20 electors were given to Hayes, 0 to Tilden. The vote was along party lines. It was 8-7. The Democrats said they would challenge this in court because they'd won the popular vote. There were all of these irregularities that they were trying to deal with, but nonetheless, they maintained the results should stand based on the popular vote. And of course, they did not like the fact that the 3 southern states that had federal troops in them to maintain some sort of order were the ones that came into play. A compromise was offered. And it's this compromise that is relevant to our discussion today. The compromise was the Republicans and the Republican candidate, Hayes, whose main platform was Reconstruction and maintaining federal troops in the South to give Blacks some hope of having an equal life, all of that had to end. And as a result of this, Hayes won the election. But he had to give up on Reconstruction, and he had to give up on maintaining federal troops in the South. The question I want to ask is why? Now, this may not be the reason, but I think it's close to a reasonable answer. It's the one I've come up with. The only way that you could kill Reconstruction is if those who fought for it killed it. The Democrats, of course, wanted to kill Reconstruction, but if you had a Republican president and you'd taken away, you'd completely defanged his whole platform, then he would be ineffective. And you could say, it's the Republicans, the party of Lincoln. So Tilden, on some level, could not have been elected. They'd fought the Civil War. There had to be some veneer of civility in the United States. After all, it is the United States. So the final result, the Republicans caved in. This is the map of the final electoral count in 1876. Hayes wins by 1 electoral vote. This result was decided in March of 1877 after the Electoral Commission had met and decided how everything would be divided. As a result of this, inequality is now systemic. There's no protection for the Black population anywhere in the US. There is no Reconstruction. This election signaled the end of Reconstruction. All of the gains that Blacks had from that, in that 10-year period, completely vanished. So who were the big losers? All Blacks, of course. And now I want to come back to Boucher. what happened to Boucher? He was in no small part affected by this election. He could not find a job at any university, although everyone who had a PhD in that time got a job at a university. He did not. He ended up teaching at the Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia for 26 years. And after that, he ended up teaching at various high schools. It was not in his favor that George Washington Carver sort of won the sentiment of the time that Blacks should really be involved in trade work. They should not be a threat. And having a PhD and teaching physics at a university would be a threat. He didn't fight any of that. He ended up teaching at the Institute for Colored Youth. He had no graduate students, no postdocs. Certainly, you would have thought, if the first Black PhD was in 1876, there would be a whole stream of people who followed after him who he had directly influenced. That was not possible because of the election of 1876. And as a result, his legacy is zero. There is no thesis of Edward Boucher at Yale, just a photo of him with some people in his class. So this leaves us with some what ifs. We can always ask counterfactuals. What if Boucher got a faculty job? Now, we know now that this question cannot be asked in isolation. This question can only be asked in tandem with another question. What if Reconstruction continued? Because that's the only way he could have gotten a faculty job. Now, most of us don't have to worry about, well, maybe we do now, the political climate to determine if we get a faculty job. Boucher did. And that directly affected inclusion in physics. So I would say you shouldn't ask the question, why didn't Boucher get a job? And why are there so few? You should ask, why did Reconstruction end? And what would have happened had Reconstruction not ended? Now, this question is synonymous with asking another question. What if racism did not exist? Because that was the ultimate reason why Reconstruction ended. If racism did not exist, I would not be giving this talk. And we would not be facing the problem that we have right now, which has been exacerbated because of the election of 1876. Now, as I mentioned, many pundits and columnists have revisited what happened in 1876 because they see huge parallels, and it shouldn't be any surprise that all of this is now being discussed again. And this is what I want to leave you with. Here is the cover of The Hill, avoiding the 1876 scenario in November. So that's the end of my talk. I wanted to put this problem in a bigger political context, one that I think is relevant today, and to show you that this is not a simple problem. It was systemic, and undoing it will also require something equally grand. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Phillips. I believe we do have some time. Yeah.
Powerful.
I believe we do have some time for questions and discussion. And so I suppose you can write your question in the chat, or you can go ahead and ask the question directly.
Yeah, we'll just ask them directly, unless you're shy and you want me to read the chat. But there are 38 entries in the chat.
Right, I don't see any questions there yet.
When was the next PhD earned by another person?
Excellent question. I forgot to mention this. It was 1921. Elmer Ims, he was a spectroscopist who made incredible advances. In fact, he's the first Black person to have a published paper in Physical Review.
Where did he earn that PhD?
Michigan.
I have another question. Can you tell us, probably everyone else knows, but how Boucher got to Yale in the first place? I mean, obviously there was some kind of pipeline to get to the graduate school. He had to get an undergraduate degree probably, and went to some high school possibly, and so on.
His family lived in New Haven.
I see.
And he did very well in high school. He was the valedictorian of his class. And so the natural place for him to go for undergraduate was Yale. And he excelled in math and chemistry and physics. And what's interesting is that to pay for his tuition at Yale, that was offered to him by the person who founded the Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia. And that person had always thought that he would come back and teach there. And when it became clear he couldn't find a job anywhere, that's when he decided to go and teach at this institute.
Philip, did this person who got the second PhD, did he get a faculty job?
No.
Oh.
He ended up, yes. Well, he did. He ended up teaching at either Hampton or Morehouse, or was it Fisk? No, it was Fisk. You know, predominantly Black. I mean, basically everyone who got a PhD at that time ended up in just Black institutions. And it's the long arm of the end of Reconstruction. So this is not a simple problem of asking you to go and fix something. There's something really awry.
So let me ask you a question about the systemic situation. Is that our fault or is not our fault? One of the reasons we have these days is small numbers, and you always hear that excuse both for faculty hires and graduate students and postdocs is the pipeline is small. There's not enough applicants. Is that a consequence systemic? Is there anything we can do? So the question is, as an action, how can we do anything about that? How can we?
Okay, so when I came to Illinois, I noticed that there were very few Black graduate students, and I decided to do something about it. So I went to the NSBP meeting every year and recruited people. And two of the people I found ended up in your program. Ibrahim Sisa and Candace Tanner.
Yes, two great people.
And neither of them they came from predominantly Black institutions, which had limited physics courses. I interviewed them. I asked them very simple questions. I didn't care if they got them right. What I cared is if they thought like physicists. I can tell you the question I asked them, if you take a spring with a spring constant K, and you cut the spring in half, what's the spring constant of each half? Now, this is a sort of trick question because the knee-jerk response is, oh, it's the spring constant, so of course it can't change. But then, you know, you realize, oh, it's the force per unit length. So something has to change. So it was that thought process that I was interested in. And, you know, they figured it out. And I came back to Illinois and said, look, I think we should admit these two people because they don't have the right background. They'll have to come and take some other courses. You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Unless that is done, you're not going to solve the problem. Because
I understand that.
the people, I mean, a lot of the people end up getting PhDs or sort of say undergraduate degrees in physics to this day, because of the configuration of the US, are still at historically Black colleges. And they might not be exposed to anything more than the first semester of E&M or the first semester of quantum mechanics.
That's a great answer. That tells you a little bit how something has to be done, even when, that's why I say people with good intention really don't solve the problem unless something more active is done about it, right? That's, I think, what goes to the conclusion of your talk, I think.
Yes, that's my whole point. I just want to put a plug for Peter Wolinus. The first person I met outside my research group when I was a graduate student was Peter Wolinus. And I just want to thank you, Peter.
Well, thank you, Philip, for saying, thank you for saying that. I was also going to say something, although it seems off topic, it's not exactly, but you know, when I was an undergraduate at Indiana, I actually took a class from Homer Neal, who you might know,
yes.
of the APS and is a Black guy. Well, I think he passed away recently.
Yes.
What's interesting to me when I think about it was, well, first of all, I had come from Gary, Indiana, which is a very race, I don't know what you want to call it, tense city. But there was nothing, he was just another professor as far as I thought most people seemed. You know, there didn't seem, I don't remember any sort of special odd view of him or anything like that. Of course, I was just an undergraduate or teenager. So, but still, it was interesting that he was quite. The students saw him as just every other professor, I think. Anyway, and obviously he went on to other things and became a. I think he also got his PhD, I think, from Michigan.
Yes, that's right.
And so somehow Michigan plays a interesting role.
There are a couple of places that play an important role, and it's because there were people there who took a proactive stance. And they had to think outside the box of how to go and increase the representation. Interestingly, Stanford is another place. And it's because of, I think it's Spicer. So you'll find these different, these places, but it's because there are faculty there who do something really proactive. Okay, and you can't do it by just, at the time you're looking for faculty members, you just say, oh, well, let's see if there are any. No, you have to go and.
I really thank Professor Phillips for the illuminating talk. Thank you very much. So I also thank Charlene for hosting. And if I take a look at the schedule, right now is within the 5-minute break and in transition. So Callie, could you please help launch Dr. Erica Henderson's presentation? And our presentation is pre-recorded, and she will participate in live Q&A after her talk. Erica, do you want to show your video so we know who you are?
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, it's my great pleasure to introduce my dear friend and colleague at the University of Houston, my mentor as well. Dr. Erica Henderson has she's an associate provost for faculty recruitment, retention, equity, and diversity. Dr. Henderson has more than 25 years of experience leading organizational effort to recruit, develop, and retain the best and brightest talents in higher education and the federal government sectors. She serves as the Associate Provost at the University of Houston, and she also managed the Center for Advancing UH Faculty Success, funded by the National Science Foundation. She holds a doctorate in higher education from George Washington University, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Business Management and a Master of Arts in Counseling, both from Hampton Universities. And it's 8:05 now. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Henderson. And
good morning. My name is Dr. Erica Henderson, and I have the pleasure of serving as Associate Provost for Faculty Recruitment, Retention, Equity, and Diversity at the University of Houston. It's a real pleasure to be with you all this morning. I want to thank the event organizers for inviting me to share the story of U of H's journey to diversify our faculty. In 2014, the University of Houston was awarded an NSF Advanced Institutional Transformational Grant. Our three goals for the grant were to recruit and retain women and women of color faculty members, support women in leadership positions, and create lasting infrastructure. Our grant, our commitment to this work starts at the top of our institution. Our president, Dr. Renu Couture, serves as the grant's PI. Why is faculty diversity so important at the University of Houston? It's in large part because we serve one of the most diverse student bodies in the country. Of all Research One institutions, we have one of the most diverse student bodies, as well as a large number of our students who attend the University of Houston are graduates of the HISD school system, the Houston Independent School District. And as you can see here on the right, the pie chart here, it reflects the diversity of the students that are in HISD K through 12. So therefore, if that trend continues, that a large number of our students continue to come from HISD, our student body will just continue to grow even more diverse. During the 5-year period that we had the advanced grant starting in fall 2014 to fall 2019, we experienced a 42% increase in the number of underrepresented minority tenure and tenure track faculty members. We had a 117% increase in Black women faculty members, 45% increase in Hispanic women faculty members, 31% increase in Hispanic male faculty members, a 17% increase in Black male faculty professors, and a 26% increase in women faculty members. To further underscore some of the initiatives that, as you can see here, the Advanced Center was started there in 2014, and then my office was started at the institution in 2015, and U of H did something unique when the way we approached the grant work. We used data-driven initiatives. So before we did anything, we researched and worked with our stakeholders, and then we studied those. So we looked at data to drive everything we did. So those initiatives that worked, we continue to keep, and I work with in my office. And then here we began to have mandatory search training. And as you can see, as a result of search training, we began to see an increase in our incoming cohorts for underrepresented minority tenure and tenure track faculty members. 2017, 23, 2018, 29, and 2019, 29%. We also experienced an increase in the number of STEM women that we have at the institution, which is a huge priority for us as an institution. As you can see, we've increased the number of full professors that we have, women's, as well as associate and an assistant. We're still working on that one. This change has also been experienced in our physics department. You see here in 2014, we now have 2 full professors of physics, female full professors of physics. We've had some growth in our associate professor. We need to work on getting our pipeline, getting more assistant professors, female assistant professors. Our physics faculty diversity has also increased. We now have 2 African-American physics faculty professors, and I'm speaking of tenure and tenure track faculty members. We've had some declines in terms of Asian, Hispanic, we've held steady, international. People are, as you all I'm sure aware, people have the option to designate their race, and so helped with white faculty members. The principles how we approached our advanced work. We firmly believe, everybody from our president to our provost, this was a campus-wide initiative. We had faculty advisory boards. We had faculty members who worked in their colleges to not only share information about advance, but also to get feedback back to the initiatives that we did. So we approached everything from thinking that diversity is excellence and excellence is diversity. So all of it goes hand in hand, and everything we do not only adds to the diversity of our faculty at the institution, but adds to excellence. We worked on initiatives to position us as an employer of choice. Our provost holds the dean and faculty members accountable, and everyone is committed to this initiative. And we also worked on developing an initiative to empower our diverse faculty to be leaders at our institution and feel supported. So, speaking now, how did we do that? I'm going to give you a little bit more information. So again, we developed our advanced center. We instituted an electronic applicant tracking system. Before then, people had to copy and mail. So we started an applicant tracking system. And then my office was started, Office of Recruitment, Retention, Equity, and Diversity. And I worked hand in hand with the staff of Advance to develop these initiatives, and then together we studied them, and I continue to do them. We developed a recruitment toolkit. It's a guide that provides faculty members with tips and best practices on how to proactively recruit faculty members. We also have information in there about telling the benefits that are available to faculty members at U of H. So we want to sell and promote the institution, but we also, in the toolkit, it provides guidance on what questions you shouldn't ask in the search process. And then we instituted mandatory search training. We initially started search training where only the search chair was required to attend search training sessions. However, after we looked at our data, we noted that those searches that had more than one person to attend a search training session had more diverse applicants. So therefore, the provost then mandated that all search committee members attend search training, and they're required to attend search training every 2 years. And so we have the search training sessions are really interactive with the faculty members. And then we wanted to focus on how we were putting ourselves out, how we were describing what University of Houston was and what our city was like. So we then required our search committees, all search postings, to then include diversity language in them, talking about the city of Houston being the 4th largest and a great, rich, and diverse place, as well as the diversity of our students. Because not only did we want to attract diverse faculty members, but we also want people who want to come to the institution and understand our unique mission of a commitment to diverse students. Then we instituted the dual career program, which I manage in my office, and we provide dual career support for tenure and tenure track faculty members for their spouses who may be seeking other faculty positions or staff positions on campus, or even positions out in the community. This is where I work hand in hand with the deans and department chairs, and we've been really successful. We've placed 35 spouses since we've started this program. I don't tell people that I have a magic bag of money, but we work together and we've been pretty successful. And so we then instituted the mandatory search training for everyone. And so then we enhanced our family-friendly policies. So we have where we can guarantee childcare spots at our Children's Learning Center. We now have where clear guidance on how women, actually faculty members who become new parents or adopt a child, can easily request leave to be there during those early period of their family growing. And then we instituted the campus visit feedback survey. We felt like this was very important because not only are we recruiting people, but people are interviewing U of H and the city when they come for a visit. And through those campus visit surveys, we learned a lot about how people saw the institution. We learned that people from the Northeast were really hesitant to come and visit because of the larger political kind of narrative. So we really worked on developing a recruitment video and other tools to demystify, as well as encouraging our search committees to be really thoughtful about the campus visit experience and giving the candidate time to have a personalized experience. And then we developed candidate evaluation rubrics, realizing that we wanted to create equity in the search process. So we worked with the University of Houston Promotion and Tenure Committee to develop a rubric template that we then provide to the search committees, and they then utilize that to tailor to their particular searches. But that way they aren't, willy-nilly thinking about how they evaluate, but the committee gets together and develops the rubric and then uses it as a lens. And there's a lot of myths. There are a lot of myths out there that there aren't any minority faculty members or candidates. So in my office, we work with search committees to develop a candidate prospect list. We do all of the heavy lifting. We identify people based upon what they've indicated as what they're looking for in a candidate, and we develop a long list of candidates and providing their vita and their email. So all they have to do is simply send them a little email telling them about their job that they're hiring for. And it's been a game changer for us. Not only have we increased the applicant pool as a result of the candidate prospect list, but it's actually led to hiring of diverse faculty members. So we want to support our faculty members and let them do this incredible work and support them doing so. The specific work that we've been doing for search committees has not only increased the underrepresented minorities that apply for U of H, but it has increased our applicant pool overall. So once again, everything we try to do is to have excellence, and diversity equals excellence, excellence equals diversity. And this is the increased applicant pool since 2014. One of our goals was to help women progress in their career to become full professors. So we instituted mid-career workshops. And these are an opportunity for women to get together with other women to learn, demystify all of those things around becoming a full professor. So this, we hold these twice a year, and we continue to hold these sessions. We continue to hold women-only sessions, as well as sessions that our men are also able to attend. And as a result of these mid-career workshops, we've seen an increased number of women full professors. As you see here, we've had a 4% growth in our full professors. Also in our social behavioral science faculty members, we've also seen a growth in full professors. those things that worked through, that we were able to use our NSF advanced funds to try new things. And those things that work, we institutionalize them. And they're still done at the institution now. We conduct search training workshops. We continue to have the toolkit, the rubric template, a recruitment video, dual career resources, a child care policy spot, which is a great thing, the child care, because our faculty are able to actually write in their contract a guaranteed child care spot, which is extremely important for those difficult newborn child care spots that are hard to come by. Our provost instituted a competitive salary adjustment. She did this over 2 years in an effort to address salary compression. And we continue to do the mid-career workshops. And another thing that was born out of Advanced, we developed a Women of Color faculty resource group. I'll talk more about it in just a moment. And so we continue to support our search committees. We don't tell them that they're doing anything bad, but we're just here to help support and empower you to do this great work. And we've enhanced our onboarding process. So when our faculty arrive or have been hired, we continue to communicate with them to make them feel welcome at the institution, as well as a smooth onboarding from everything from new faculty orientation to the first year here at the institution. We have tailored services from our Faculty Engagement and Development Office. Some more about the dual career program and how we've been able to help support our faculty members. The women out of Advance, we developed we have 68 underrepresented women of color who are at the institution who are tenured and tenure track. And through Advance, the women of color developed a proposal and sought support from the provost. She was so committed to this because not only do they're minority within a minority, she realizes the intersectionality and the challenges that they may experience. So she created the Underrepresented Women Color Coalition. And it's this group of 68 women who work together to support each other in their personal, professional endeavors at the institution. They meet on a monthly basis. They have an annual retreat. They have stimulus research grant funding, which has led to cross-disciplinary research being conducted and funded on the multi-million-dollar level. So it's a real gem for which our women of color greatly value. So we're proud of the progress we've made at the University of Houston. However, we are celebrating but not stopping until we are the nation's most diverse research institution in the country. I look forward to having an exchange with you and answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please, this is Margaret. I'm the moderator. Please type your questions on chat so I can read. Okay, there's a question here. Thanks thanks, Dr. Henderson. It looks like the search chair and committee training has had a noticeable effect on the faculty composition. I am curious, what does this training look like?
Sure, it's a 1 hour training session. So first we start off with giving the demographics to what the students that we serve and the benefits of faculty diversity. We share with them how research indicates the benefit of faculty diversity. And so we help demystify all of those pieces, as well as we share with them that, you know, within some disciplines, there are breaking down those myths, that there are some disciplines of where there are fewer number of faculty of color, but they are there. We just got to be much more proactive in our approach. So we then share with them very proactive approaches to recruit. So you can't just post your job and think that people are going to apply. So we walk through very data-driven and things that have worked. And then we then talk about how to mitigate bias in their evaluation process. So we talk about the use of the rubric, and then we talk about utilizing behavioral interview questions. And then we move on to talking about sharing all of the benefits and resources so that our committees can then feel empowered to really sell the institution and the city. And then we offer our assistance. So that's a lot of the basics we share, but it's a very informal session that we oftentimes have questions and great exchanges. Like one of the things that we're really working hard to do now is to address, because a lot of us are going to be interviewing in this format. So we're working with our search committees to even think about potential candidates, to be really thoughtful, to think about candidates that may have disabilities. So we want to be really proactive and create a sense of openness.
Okay, there's lots of questions, so I'm going to address one, even though there's 2 or more questions per person, but I'll just get the first one, and then we'll come back if we have time, okay?
Sure.
The next question is from Timothy Bailish. Question for the first question: should the diversity in the faculty be within a department or between departments?
I'm sorry, could you expand on that question?
Should the diversity in faculty be within a department or between departments?
It should be all, diversity should be everywhere. It should be embedded in within departments and across departments as well.
Okay. This question from Pernilla Wuttastafshit. You said you make a list of possible candidates to send job advertisement to. Who does that job to find names?
I have someone on my staff that does that.
Okay. Next question by Jenny Magnus. Are there some resources you can recommend to build a diverse applicant pool?
Sure. One of those things, building a candidate list. We try to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So the search committee, the work is important and it's time consuming. So we do a lot of the heavy lifting. So I say institute some of those things that we've done at the university, being very intentional about what you all put in your job posting, and then thinking about where you post your job. So just posting it in the Chronicle of Higher Education or something like that just isn't the way you got to do it. So you've got to be really innovative in reaching out to diversity-centric organizations within your discipline. So in the physics field, you would reach out to people who are influencers and sharing your job posting there. I'd reach out to department chairs of HBCUs and share your job posting and invite people to contact you. So we create a very simple little email that says, hey, we've got this great job and we hope that you'd be interested in applying for it. And if you are, I'm happy to schedule some time. And that has just been a game changer for us. So being very proactive in your recruitment techniques, and then being also equitable and thoughtful in terms of how interviews are conducted. So we try to make sure everybody follows particular guidelines in terms of the utilization of the rubric, being very consistent across the interviewing and questions. So those things I think don't cost a lot, but will prove very beneficial.
Next question from TJ. The example of the physics department suggests that there are now fewer faculty members of color in the department, but more white women faculty members. Is this an accurate read of the chart you showed?
Not quite. Actually, we have, and actually one of the next speaker will be, is one of our wonderful Black faculty members. Her name is Dr. Donna Stokes, and she recently became a full professor at the University of Houston. And our own Dr. Chung here is a full professor at U of H. So actually we went from having just one African-American physics professor that we now have 2. And his name is Dr. Byron Freelon, and we were very fortunate to recruit him. And we recruited him through our dual career program. Our College of Education was recruiting his wife to be an education faculty member. And she then indicated during the search process that she would like to come to the University of Houston, but she's got a partner who's also a faculty member. And so we had a chance to meet. I talked to Dr. Freelon, and so happened the physics department was hiring that year. So we were able to have the benefits. So we increased the diversity of our African American faculty in physics as such, and it's maintained with our Hispanic.
Next question.
Lots more work to do.
Next question by Aravind Chandrasekaran. In the retention space, what are some effective tools that you found to help with handling external doubt or microaggressions that minority faculties face within their department?
And honestly, this is a problem that we're wrestling with because some departments, I will honestly admit that the climate is not ideal. So we are trying to address that through everything from the Underrepresented Women of Color Coalition. We have some other initiatives that are for women where they have the opportunity to have fellowships where they can shadow particular administrative members. And so we also have an academic women in leadership. But this is one of the things that I'm very intentionally working on with some other faculty colleagues to try to address the climate. And we're going to work with department chairs on a whole new way, because I do see where, and oftentimes have the privilege of being able to develop relationships and learn about some particular departments where climate is not the best. So it's on a case-by-case basis, but we try to, for those instances where it is, try to meet salary requirements, but we've still got lots more work to do in that regard.
Next question from Christian Anderson. What do you do in your campus tours to convince people of colors that Houston is a reasonable place to build a long career in life?
Sure. So that's one of the things that in my office we also do and work with search committees, that we try to be very intentional so that when a faculty member comes for their campus visit, we already know what their research is, and so we try to create synergies, whether or not they're on campus, if there are some research areas that they can also pick up their research. And so some particular faculty, minority faculty members that we were trying to recruit did a lot of research, like they worked with juvenile justice. So during their campus visit, they came to Houston. I scheduled an opportunity for them to meet with the assistant police chief who focuses on juvenile justice. So just so he could see himself coming to Houston and continuing his research and knowing that relationships were here to support him or to continue that. So just being very intentional and thoughtful about when we bring candidates here and seeing themselves. And so we sit down and I talk about search committees reach out to me, and I sit down and I talk about what's it like to be here, to be a faculty member at UH, and if in fact I will connect them with people who I think they would have some synergy with. I had one search committee member reach out to me to ask me to meet with a faculty candidate, and through that conversation, that candidate indicated that he was a member, he wanted to know what was it like to be a UH faculty member in the LGBTQ community. And so I immediately reached out to another faculty member, and so they could then see themselves and know that there was a community and how it would feel to be a member of faculty and be an LGBTQ.
I think there are 3 more questions. The question by Sandra McQuire. Has there been any resistance to your effort by senior faculty? If so, how have you addressed this?
Yes, there have been. And so I think the way I see this work is that oftentimes you'll have, people who readily embrace you, and then you'll have people who you can win over with data and research, and then there are just some people that you never win over. So I just continue to try to do the work and let it speak for itself. So I just accept that not everybody's going to fully embrace this work, and keep charging ahead.
Next question by Laurel Huff. I think the guaranteed childcare slots will be very useful. Do you grow the childcare or simply reserve slots for faculty? I worry about disadvantaging younger and poor members on the campus, and so the pipeline.
So we guarantee the childcare spot. So this is for new faculty members that we're recruiting to come to the institution. So there are a sufficient number of childcare spots, and so this is it. We don't have a problem with that.
Okay. The next question from Jose Onuchik. Could you comment about salary equity to women and minority compared to other faculty? How do we make everybody to collaborate when you need to make double appointments? In my experience, this has been a major challenge.
I agree. I think the provost salary equity initiative was done 3 years ago, but we still got problems. And so unfortunately, even during these current economic times, we don't have any money to really address those. So if I were queen for the day and I had access to money, I would resolve that. But we've made some real strides to address the salary inequity.
The questions by Tab Hawkins. Dr. Henderson, this sounds like an ongoing re-envisioning of the university's vision, and it sounds like your office has teeth at the institution. How long ago did U of Houston decide to focus on addressing these issues?
Earnestly, when the institution sought to do this work in 2013, when they applied for the NSF NSF grant, and then that jump-started everything. And then I was hired in my position in 2015, and I was the first person to hold this position. So, and it's continued charge. And I cannot say enough about the leadership of our president, who firmly believes in this, and our super duper champion, Dr. Paula Myrick Short, who serves as our provost. She is a tenacious advocate for this work. She uses her hard and soft power to support this endeavor, because she earnestly believes all of the things that research indicates, that our students do better when they have diverse faculty and who teach them, who mentor them, as well as it leads to better research outcomes. So we have the support at the top, and they utilize their resources to support it.
Okay, I thank everyone. I thank Dr. Henderson for the fantastic talk and then the Q&A. And we will have a little bit short break for transition. And the next talk will start at 8:40, 3 more minutes. Thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna. Donna, are you there?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes. Okay, Donna, you'll be standing by. Let's have a little bit break, and then you will be next, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's 8:39. I can take this time to introduce Professor Donna Stokes, so her time can be on time. It's a pre-recorded talk followed by a Q&A. Professor Donna Stokes is a professor of physics, and as Dr. Henderson mentioned, Donna and I are the two women faculty arisen to the full professor rank recently at the University of Houston, our department. And she is also Associate Dean for Undergraduate Affairs and Student Success in the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics at the University of Houston. We call it UH. Her scientific research focuses on understanding the structural and optical properties of semiconductors. Her education research focuses on physics, and STEM represents science, technology, engineering, mathematics, we call STEM, student success, and teacher education, and have received many NSF awards on building a community for physics students at UH. She received her PhD at UH and was a postdoctoral researcher at the Naval Research Laboratory. She is American Physical Society Physics Teacher Education Coalition Fellow and recipient of an NSF Early Career Award. She has received many teaching and advising awards from UH, including Excellence in Group Teaching and Provost Faculty Advising Award. Thank you very much. Callie, could you please kindly load Professor Stokes' presentation?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Donna Stokes. I'm a professor of physics, and I'm also the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Affairs and Student Success in the College of Natural Science and Mathematics at University of Houston. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about some of the things that we've done in our physics program to improve our diversity and inclusion and to improve our graduation rate for our students. So let me just give you a little bit of an idea of how the talk is going to go. I'll give you a brief program overview, and then we'll talk about some of the challenges that we were facing in our physics program. And these challenges are not just for physics, they actually exist in many of the STEM fields. Then I'll talk about some of the things we've done to improve the program, some things we've added to the program, and then our overall outcomes that we've seen. And I'll talk about this in a context of the past 10 plus years. So before I talk about our actual physics program, let me just give you some background on the University of Houston. So University of Houston, located in Houston, Texas, is currently designated as a Hispanic serving institution as well as an Asian, Native American, and Pacific Islander serving institution. And one of the things we're really proud of is that in the past 10 plus years, University of Houston has been in, I would say, the top 4 ranking for US News and World Report for college campuses with the most diverse student body. So that's amazing. And that is best fitting since we are Hispanic serving and Asian, Native American, and Pacific Islander serving institution. But what that doesn't, kind of translate to is the departments in our STEM colleges. For instance, in the Department of Physics, we had about 85 undergraduate majors and only 18% were underrepresented minorities in 2007. So I'm going to be talking about a comparison of where we were in 2007, 13 years ago, to how far we've come now and what we are looking like as far as diversity and inclusion for the department now. In addition, we had about 27 tenure track faculty, and this is not included in non-tenure track, but we have had 2 underrepresented minorities, 1 male and myself. We were graduating 8 to 10 students a year. We had low participation in research. We were not very competitive for national awards. I mean, there were many challenges that we faced. We were not producing certified physics teachers. Our Society of Physics students was there, but not so active. And we had not so great D, F, and W, that is grade D, F, or withdrawal rates in our introductory courses. So we looked at the department and said there's definitely lots of room for improvement. We are doing some things that we were doing well, but there was definitely a lot of room for improvement. So in 2006, I became the undergraduate advisor for the department, as well as the chair for the Undergraduate Studies Committee, which kind of handles all of our programming for our undergraduates. And we looked at the challenges we were facing: diversity, program enrollment, improving our student success in the courses, both in the major courses and the service courses. How can we increase the engagement of our students? How can we establish a community for them so that they feel a sense of belonging and are retained to the major? And how do we overall improve the number of students, physics majors, we were graduating? So this was a nice list of challenges and challenges that can't be met with any one, solution or thing to do that will actually result in some improvement. So we had to really carefully think about how we were going to do this and how we move forward. So we thought about, doing this over, we didn't say a 10-year span. We just said we have about a 5-year span and we'll start implementing some things and see how this helps. But it ended up being 10 years plus, and we continue to make improvements to make sure that we're creating a thriving physics program for our students. So one of the first things we looked at is our enrollment was about 85 students. The University of Houston at that time was probably about 35,000 student enrollment in about 2007. Now we're well over 40,000 student enrollment in 2020. And so we said, our physics program doesn't really reflect the number of students we have on campus. So how do we improve our enrollment numbers as well as to get additional underrepresented students into the group? So we started to do recruitment and outreach events. We visited local high schools, middle schools. We took student groups out with us. We did demonstrations for the students, and we talked about what the physics program could offer a student and what type of career choices they would have. So we've been doing this since 2007, and this is a collective effort by the department where numerous faculty are engaging in this type of outreach. And in addition to that, we were also working with students who were visiting the campus. And this was mostly through summer camps or various programs that brought students on the campus. We would allow the students to come in, we do physics demonstrations for them, take them on lab tours, and make sure they knew about the physics department, which is, you know, half of the game. You have to get the information out to the students to actually get them to enroll in your program. In addition, we realized that we were missing a big part, and that was the connection to the high school physics teachers who could actually act as recruiters for us if we got them engaged. So over the course of the past 10, 15 years, we've been doing outreach to high school physics teachers. And one of those programs was the CourtMet program, which was a collaboration between University of Houston and Rice and some additional institutions. But what it did is it provided a summer program for high school teachers and their students, exposing them to research and getting them the opportunity to work in research labs. It also exposed them to Saturday physics events where we brought in, you know, top-notch speakers to talk about physics topics. And it just gave the students an idea of what a physics program could give them, what opportunities they would be able to take advantage of if they were enrolled in a physics program. And for us, it gave us the opportunity to utilize these physics teachers to recruit for our program. They could take back what they learned from us at the university into their classrooms and encourage their students to pursue a physics degree. Now, additional project that we got engaged in was a STEM teacher equity program. And this program was a professional development for high school physics teachers who mostly did not have training in the area of physics, but were teaching physics at their schools. So that means they didn't have a major or a minor degree in physics. However, they were assigned to teach physics because they had the closest qualifications to a physics teacher. So we were offering these teachers inquiry-based content knowledge and tools and techniques that they could take back to their classrooms for teaching the physics content. But what we found is that these teachers also served as recruiters for us. These teachers started bringing their students back to the campus for college tours. And this was a way for us to get more students engaged in and knowing about what the physics program could offer. So just briefly, one additional way we did it was through our STEM Center, which reaches out to mostly the K through 8th grade students and some high school students, but through the things that they were offering as well, which were the Mars Rover celebration, which brings 6th through 8th graders in to build rovers that they will send to Mars and just get them engaged in science content. So we use these programs to kind of introduce the students to what physics and science is all about and hopefully get them interested in enrolling at UH in the physics program. So now that we had started getting more enrollment, our enrollment was increasing over the years and our diversity was increasing over the years, we had to think about how to make sure the students would succeed once they were in the program. So the Undergraduate Studies Committee reviewed all our course syllabi, we reviewed our course content, and we made adjustments to these courses to make sure that we were giving the students exactly what they needed to be prepared to finish their own major or to complete the physics major and be competitive for graduate schools or jobs. So we made changes in our introductory courses where we standardized the course. All instructors were using the same textbook, giving common exams, common homework assignments. We also started using interactive teaching techniques such as peer instruction, interactive lecture demos. We even, in the past 5 years, have been offering an inquiry style course, which just gives the student an alternate way to learn physics from the traditional lecture style courses. But we also looked at this not just in our intro courses, we started looking at our upper level courses, how they were structured, the content they contained, reviewed them and made comparisons of our program to national programs. So we made adjustments and restructured courses and content so that it would be competitive or be comparable to what is offered in other physics programs across the nation. So this is one way we had to make sure, although we were getting the students in, we had to make sure that we were gonna have them set up to be successful. And then we had to determine how are we gonna retain these students? Because that's the key. We know that for STEM majors, 50% of the students who come in wanting or pursuing a STEM degree actually don't complete the STEM degree. So we wanted to figure out ways to make sure we retain these students. And one thing we did was to create degree plans in a flowchart way that outline which courses the students should take and how they should navigate taking these courses so that they could be able to maneuver themselves and figure out how they were going to complete their degree in a timely manner. But on top of that, we recommended and pretty much required all students to have advising. So they had to either visit with a faculty advisor or with one of our staff advisors, which is housed in our advising center. So this way we would make sure our students were staying on track, they were taking courses at the appropriate time, and that they were going to finish their degree in a timely manner. One of the things that we recognized in this advising is that many of our students weren't completing the program in a timely manner because of the frequency of the time that we were offering our courses. Because our enrollment in the earlier years, 2007, 2008, was low, we didn't have a large number of students who were taking the upper level classes per semester. So many of our core courses were only offered once a year, and some of our advanced electives were only offered once every other year. But this poses a problem when a student is trying to complete a degree in 4 years or 5 years. So we had to really start looking at our course frequency. So over the time, we have changed that, and now all of our core courses are offered every semester, which is a huge change, and that change was able to happen because we increased our enrollment and the demand was there. And then some of our elective courses, most of them are offered at least once a year. So now students can stay on track and be retained to the major because they're not having to look for other courses to take. So other things we did to make sure we were retaining students was to increase our research engagement. Research is not a requirement for the program, but we highly encourage all students to engage in some research project before they graduate. So we assist the students, the faculty, the Undergraduate Studies Committee, the advisors in identifying research opportunities that are best for them. Some of them are engaged in individual-based research opportunities in faculty labs. And then we also have some who are engaged in group activities. And the group research projects have really been the ones that have helped to retain the students because it helped them to build a sense of community within the department. Just a couple of them are highlighted here. We have two, the first two are actually NASA sponsored projects, the High Altitude Student Payload and the Undergraduate Student Instruments Project. Both of these are teams of students from 8 to 12 students, and they all are responsible for designing a payload and then flying that payload and conducting research in low altitude Earth atmosphere. So these projects have really helped us to build that, community where the students are now working together on a common project. Another project is the Frontiers in Science program, which Dr. Margaret Chung, she is kind of the spearhead person at University of Houston who engaged, I want to say about 8 students per year in research that was related to biophysics. And this was a joint program with Rice University. And it was always exciting to see our students getting geared up for interviews for this program because they were very excited about the research they would get involved in, but not only that, getting exposed to people in the field who were doing this through Rice University and this program. So research engagement has been like really huge in community building. Well, research shows that STEM students who get engaged in research are more likely to complete their degree. So this is something that we still highly encourage our students to do, to make sure that they do get involved in research before they graduate from the institution. Other things is that the research, once we saw our students getting engaged, it really gave them the ability to get engaged in other opportunities, such as participating in conferences and meetings, not only within their disciplines, but locally at UH and across other disciplines. So one in particular is the Conference for Undergraduate Women in Physics. We send several students to this conference every year. It helps our female students to get engaged in a community where they see people who look like them, excited about physics. And similar for the National Society of Black Physicists, we are now sending students on a regular basis to that conference. And it's just amazing when you talk to these students after they've attended these conferences, how they are so excited and invigorated about physics after they see people who look like them talking about physics, discussing physics, and they're just excited to get engaged even more when they return from those conferences. So that's one thing that the research has helped our students to get engaged in. And it's also made them competitive for national honor and honors and awards, such as the Goldwater Scholarship and the Graduate Fellowship. And I don't know if it was on that first slide, but before 2007, there were some students who received the award, but there were very few. And then from 2007 on, we really had a huge jump in the number of students who were able to apply for and receive some of those scholarships. So the research engagement really helped them to become more competitive for this. And that just all ties into sustainability. You have to be able to sustain student success and motivation for them to continue on and complete the degree. So we had to think about how do we make sure the students will remain here. We're retaining them, but we want them to be happy while they're here, give them a sense of belonging. So things that we did to encourage community building and just, creating a culture within the department that let the students know that they are supported. Our Society of Physics Students chapter became very active. Now we had some ups and downs throughout those 13 years or so, but for the most part, the students were very active. They received several awards for their work, especially for their work for outreach to the community. But one thing that came out of this about 5 years ago is a spinoff of a sister society, the Astronomy Society at University of Houston, which has really been active with getting not only the physics majors engaged, but majors across campus engaged in astronomy type activities. We have an observatory in our the 7th floor of our building, and they often host events. They're open every Friday. Well, not during the pandemic, but they're open every Friday for students to come in and use the telescope. And it's really been really nice to watch the students get excited about astronomy. And it's not just the physics majors, it's majors from across the campus. So that really helped to build a community. So let me just touch on a few other things because I'm going to be running out of time here. One thing we added to the program is our physics teacher education. We teamed up with our Teach Houston STEM teacher education program to start a physics teacher education program. As I mentioned, we had not graduated a certified physics teacher in over a decade before 2007. And because of this collaboration, we were able to develop degree plans that outlined the physics bachelor's degree and the teacher certification courses all in 4 years. We were able to secure funding to provide scholarships for our students. We were able to develop a physics by inquiry course and many other things that now has resulted in us producing a large number of physics, not large, 2 per year of physics teachers since 2014. But let me just give you some of the outcomes. So here we see in 2007, we started with 85 students, and progressively now we're up to 130. Underrepresented minorities, the percentage has doubled. We went from 16 students total to 53, which has doubled about 50%. Females, again, doubled about 50%, and the number of students graduating has increased tremendously. So we're on the right track. We're doing some great things to build community and establish diversity within our department. And this is what it looks like for certified teachers. So on average, we're producing about 2 per year, which is awesome. It's amazing that we were producing none. So we've received a few accolades throughout the years related to what we've done. And here is a quick overview of the changes that we have. I'm sorry, I can't get my alarm to stop. There we go. So this is just a quick comparison chart that shows you how we've changed and how we've grown, how we are able to improve the diversity and inclusion within our department, how we've improved our graduation numbers for our students, and how we're overall impacting student success in the Department of Physics. And this is something that hopefully other departments that are smaller like we are can consider when thinking about changing what they're doing and how to improve numbers for graduating physics majors. So I'll end there and just leave the last slide to let you see that we were recognized for a lot of our efforts. We did receive the American Physical Society Committee on Education Improving Undergraduate Education Award, which recognized us mostly for our improvement on physics teacher education and for improving diversity within our department. So hopefully I've given you some things to think about for going back and improving the status of your physics departments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stokes. Thank you so much. So I was going to start reading questions from chat. First question from Dr. Tim Baelish. Dr. Stokes, how do you address the issue of theorist versus experimentalist in physics, plus the addition of complex biology?
So if you mean on the basis of recruiting students or getting students engaged in those activities, all of our faculty, whether they're theorists or experimentalists, are actively recruiting students to their program. So it's up to me or up to us, those on the Undergraduate Studies Committee, to make sure that the students know what opportunities are there for them and to make sure that they get prepared to enter in whichever opportunity they choose. So if they know they want to be theorists, we make sure we let them know that they need to be engaged in some computer-based activities. Now, as far as going out into the community and recruiting on these bases, we have presentations that are geared towards all of those areas: theoretical, experimental physics, biophysics, you name it. Dr. Chung has some wonderful experiments that she runs, and when we bring groups to the campus, they often tour her lab. Her lab might not be having equipment everywhere, but her lab has a computer and students who talk about and show complex DNA sequences on the screen and explain that to students. So it's pretty easy to recruit at all levels for theoretical, experimental, and across all of the different disciplines within physics. You just have to be able to be creative about how you're going to present it to the students and make it relevant to them. So you do have to figure out a way to make it have a connection to them and the space that they live in today. But that's generally not too hard since our physics is dealing with everything in the world. So it hasn't been that difficult.
And then read out questions from TJ. Thank you so much for sharing us what can be done.
Thank you.
And from Celestina Pagan, thank you for this talk, Dr. Stokes. And also thank from Sandra McGuire. Any more questions? Questions from Celestina Pagan. Have you considered offering an online graduate program in physics designed for teachers?
So we don't have an online program for a graduate program for physics teachers, but we do have several programs that are for physics for teachers at the graduate levels. We have a couple that are funded through NSF, and it brings them back for professional development. So not so much to offer them a quick route to a degree, which they do get a master's degree, but it gives them more professional development and building on what they already have. And that we also offer some quick alternative certification programs that's about 1.5 years where they come back and they do a master's and get certified. So we do have some, but they're not online. Well, they're online now because our courses are being offered online, but it's not an online program like some of the other alternative certification programs or some of the other programs where you can get a master's in education. And this is in conjunction with the STEM College and the College of Education. So You really do have to have a good working relationship between the two to make this work, because a lot of the courses that you have to offer will come through the College of Education versus the STEM college. But no, we don't have a fully online program for graduate program for physics teachers.
And next question from Lauren Hoff. Is the design of your curriculum available? How do you deal with students who arrive with weak math? Can those students get through the major in a timely fashion?
Yeah, so all of our flow charts and degree plans are online on the physics website under the Undergraduates tab. It is very difficult when the students come in and they're behind in math. However, our College of Natural Science and Mathematics, we only admit the students if they have certain courses completed. So no student is allowed into the college if they have not completed pre-calculus. So we know that the lowest we have to start with the student is at the pre-calculus level. When they come in at pre-cal, then we can get them in a track that can finish in about 4.5 years, where the student would have to take some of their courses over the summer, and that would be the introductory level courses. If they come in with something below that, like I said, they're generally not admitted straight away into the college, and they will spend about a year to earn the credits that they need to gain admissions into the college. And then once they gain admissions, then we work with them from there based on what level of math they have. And that's usually where the deficit falls, is within the math. So we've been able to keep students on track, but it does generally add about a year to their degree plan. So they usually will finish in at about 5 years.
Since there's suddenly a rise of questions, so we're just going to have one question per person, okay? Aravind Chandran Sankaran said, what additional challenges do you face with respect to retention and participation in online instructions?
This is huge, because most of our majors, we really sell it by saying, hey, we need you engaged, we need you involved, and we want to get you in a research lab. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic right now, that has been our biggest challenge, because many of our students and many of our faculty are not able to take on students into their labs, or they're just not ready to take on students. Most of us right now are just trying to make the transition to be able to teach our courses and keep our graduate students on track. And they're not quite ready to take the undergraduates into a lab experience in a virtual environment. But hopefully that will change and faculty will start getting adjusted. But retention is always an issue. So we really reach out to the students as early as possible to get them engaged in some type of activity, either research or engaged in our student society, or just something to make them feel like they belong. Retention is, that's always going to be a problem, I think. And the sense of community, I think, really helps with that, helping our students to have that. Right now, I really believe that at least our department, and maybe, departments across the country, will really have some problems, because our students are losing that sense of connection in this virtual environment. And it's just really, really hard to figure out how to keep them engaged. There's only so much interactive activity you can do online. We are utilizing a majority of that, but it's a challenge. So if you have any suggestions, we're open to that.
Next question from Jose Onochik. How about creating summer research program for teachers? How much they would be interested?
Our STEP program, which is for physics teachers, is a summer program. So it actually runs during the summer for a 2-week institute, and then it runs through the year, where the teachers are brought back, I think once a month or twice a month, I can't remember right now. But that gives them some interaction with the faculty and the students on campus. So that helps to get them some training in the summer. But we have, through our Teach Houston program, I want to say 4 NSF grants, all of which have training for teachers during the summer. And most of that is professional development. So the teachers are able to use that time that they spend on campus, either learning different ways to teach their student, different things about culturally responsive pedagogy and how to incorporate that into STEM courses, et cetera, so that they can have that as professional development during the summer and then move on through into their academic year. We also offer some things during the academic year, but they're not as detailed as what we offer during the summer. And the summer programs many of them are linked to our summer camps, We run about 3 different summer camps through our Teach Houston program, and they run from either 2 weeks to all the way up to 6-week programs. And we bring back our teachers to serve as the camp counselors or leads for the programs during the summer. And they also do professional development during that time. So it's a really active program for our teachers and our alumni of our Teach Houston program.
The next question from Ryan McGorty. Can you explain how you reduced the DFW rate by about half?
That was a challenge, and it didn't happen overnight. It took probably the whole 10 years, and we're still working on it. So initially, our courses were offered. Every professor taught out of whichever textbook they wished and taught in the way that they wanted. The first thing we did is we started to standardize our introductory courses. So everybody used the same textbook. We had a set lecture schedule where everybody was, supposed to cover the same topics. We gave exams at the same time. So the entire population of the students enrolled in a particular course were taking the exams on the same day at the same time. And we just worked with the faculty to try to make sure everybody was offering an interactive technique within their course. Some of the new school faculty, of course, were on board with, all types of clicker questions, peer instruction, JIT, you name it. But then we had some of our older faculty. The senior faculty were not so engaged in that. They were like, I've been teaching with chalk and the book and my notes for 30 years. Why do I need to change? But we were able to get some of those faculty to transition and to see the importance of engaging the new learner. Our new learners need some technology to get them engaged in the content. And that has really helped. I think within the first 2 years, our DFW rate improved like 10%. I mean, 5% maybe, but it was huge. It was a huge jump after about 3 years of doing these different things. But everybody did not buy in, and we still do have a few faculty who still do not buy in, but we try to assign those introductory courses to the faculty who do buy in. So keep those who want to be engaged.
Thank you. Next question from Jonathan Pickett. Do you know where the graduates go on to teach at? Is there any effort to keeping them involved?
So for our physics teachers, we have a placement program. So all of our teachers, majority of them are placed within the Houston area. And 98%, I don't have the thing in front of me, about 98% of our students remain in the Houston area. But Houston is a huge area. There are many school districts to place the students, but we have a great working relationship with all those school districts, and all of our students are always placed. I don't think we've had any students who weren't placed. Now, we have had some who did not remain in the teaching profession who've graduated from the program. They may be, taught for 1 year and then they did not remain. But the majority of our students remain in the teaching profession beyond 5 years, which is not the traditional thing that's been occurring for physics teachers in general. But we don't have any issues with placing them at all. Right now, we're placing 50 student teachers for the spring semester into schools. Of course, that's a challenge, but that's great. 50 kids will graduate with a teaching degree, but this is not all physics. We generally have 2 of those every year to be in the physics arena.
Thank you very much. There will be no more questions. And I thank all the speakers from the keynote sessions. This is fantastic.